Check, check, check. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We just had some internet issues there we had to figure out, so appreciate your patience. We are not live streaming. We're just going to record. Flip it later.
We will not be live streaming tonight, so you're all here, so you're in good shape. But those at home, we'll let the people at home know. Thank you. Okay, you can start.
Good evening. Welcome to the Ward 2 City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Debbie Magnuson, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis, but I am not a resident of Ward 2. I'm pleased to be moderating this forum this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization with a long history of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that's widely used by voters regardless of their political beliefs. This forum is co-sponsored by the East Bank Neighborhoods Partnership and its executive director, Chris Lautenschlager, and by the Cedar Riverside Community Council and the League of Women Voters, Minneapolis. The views that will be expressed are those of the candidates and not those of the League or the co-sponsors. Neither the League of Women Voters nor its co-sponsors endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. We're holding this forum for voters to hear from the candidates and to compare their ideas. This forum is being held in front of a live audience in the Kaufman Union Theater, and we want to reinforce that tonight's program is not a debate, it is a forum. Candidates will be asked questions to which they will respond directly to the audience and not to each other as it would be in a debate. The candidates are aware of the format and have agreed to it. All questions will be in written form. Audience members are welcome to write their questions on cards. We have people here to collect. If you want to raise your hands, and we'll bring them up to our question people, and I'll talk a little bit more about that process in a minute. The recording of this forum will be available after the forum, right? Yes, okay, that's still true. And we'll have closed caption option available in multiple languages. Thank you to MCN6 for the production and recording of this event. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts not be worn in this room, and that no signs or literature will be distributed during the live event here in this room. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so that everyone can hear the discussion. We would also ask that you hold your applause until the end of the forum so that candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your questions. And finally, please silence all electronic devices. So a little bit about Ward 2. It covers the southeast area of Minneapolis and is home to about 35,000 residents, as well as the University of Minnesota and Augsburg University. Ward 2 has the largest student population in the state of Minnesota, alongside diverse neighborhoods of both homeowners and renters. This ward spans both banks of the Mississippi River and has, as you all know, beautiful parks and green space. All candidates on the ballot were invited to the forum, and 3 are with us this evening. They are, in alphabetical order, Shelley Medore. You can wave your hand, Shelley.
Oh, hello.
Shelley Medore, Max Thoreau, and Robin Wansley. We thank the candidates in advance for engaging in a respectful and civil discourse. We have timekeepers sitting in the front row so that each candidate has the same amount of time to respond to questions. Following the opening statements of 1.5 minutes, each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to answer each questions, followed by, at the end, 30 seconds to make a closing statement. The timekeeper will hold up a card when there are 15 seconds remaining and a stop card when time is up. We ask that the candidate finish their sentence and stop when they see the stop sign come up. We expect this forum to last a little over an hour, approximately 1 hour and 10 minutes. Questions are based on community concerns and were developed by our committee, submitted in advance from co-sponsor surveys and solicited from the community at large. During the forum, as we said, we will take written questions from all of you in the audience until about 7:10. Questions will be only taken in written form. Volunteers will gather the questions and hand them to our question facilitators, sitting here at my right, and then to the moderator, to me. We ask that the questions be clear, pertinent to the issues at hand, within the scope of the office, and made in the form of a question, not a statement. All questions are carefully reviewed and rewritten when necessary to make sure that they're directed to all candidates, are forward-looking, are not biased, and not of a personal nature. We look for a balance of topics that affect all of us, both locally and in the city. To get to as many topics as possible, we will limit the number of questions in each category. We may consolidate questions, so you might not hear the question that you submitted exactly in the form you wrote it, because there's many common themes that come up in questions, and we do consolidate them. Finally, all submitted questions are the property of the League of Women Voters, Minneapolis. Now, let me introduce you to the candidates. For the candidates' opening statement, we ask that they address the following question. Why are you running, and what are your qualifications? Each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond. It was determined by drawing numbers that the first candidate to speak is Max Thoreau, and then followed by Shelley, followed by Robin Wansley. The order in which we ask the regular questions once the opening statements are done will be in a random order. Okay, so Max Thoreau, please give us your opening statement.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight on this cool, rainy evening, and thank you for the sponsors and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My name is Max Thoreau, and I'm running to help build a safer, more affordable, and more welcoming city. I've served as a student senator here at the University of Minnesota for 2.5 years. I worked as a legislative intern at the Minnesota State Senate, and I've worked in retail for 7 years, beginning when I was 14 years old. These experiences have all helped me develop a unique perspective on the issues that are important to our community, how much listening to your constituents matters, and how to affect positive change. Our ward faces many different issues on a daily basis, ranging from neglected infrastructure, public safety concerns, and the ever-increasing cost of living. We must work together to find solutions that work for everybody in our city. We pay some of the highest taxes in the entire state, and we deserve to see the positive effects of the revenue that our city generates. Ward 2 deserves safe, clean streets, smooth roads, sidewalks, and bike lanes, and affordable rent. If elected, I would work to expand MPD recruitment, push to explore the efficacy of community-based response groups, support rent stabilization policies, and ensure that we see the effects of the taxes that we pay on our streets. We deserve a council member who works to bridge divides in our city's politics and is a representative for everybody in our ward. I hope you'll join me in this effort.
Thank you, candidate Thoreau. Next, we'll hear from Shelley Medore.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who came here tonight in person and online to listen and ask questions. Thank you to the Minneapolis League of Women Voters for organizing this forum, as well as the East Bank Neighborhoods Association and the Cedar Riverside Community Council for sponsoring this event. And thank you to Debbie Magnuson for moderating this discussion tonight. To those of you who have not met me, my name is Shelley Medore, and we're all here because we care deeply about Minneapolis, and that's exactly why I'm running for our community on the City Council. Minneapolis is important, and I've dedicated my career to advocating for it. When I saw a disconnect between my neighbors and their local government, I became a community organizer, informing parents of children with disabilities of their rights in and out of the classroom. I've worked with school districts, city councils, county, and state governments to bring about change. I was then elected to the Minnesota legislature, where I spearheaded health care, transportation, and affordable housing reforms that directly benefited our community. I authored the bill that allows anyone with a disability placard up to 4 hours of extended parking in Minneapolis, legislation that is still in place today. I'm qualified to serve on the City Council not only because of my experience, but because of my deep commitment to Minneapolis. I am also a proud Gopher mom and Augie mom. I'm endorsed by City Council members Andrea Jenkins, Latricia Vita, Lene Palmisano, Michael Rainville, along with several labor organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Madore. Now we'll hear from Robin Wansley.
Good evening, everyone. I am Council Member Robin Wansley, and during my last 3 years on council, I've worked with community members and elected officials at all levels of government to deliver policies and funding that have significantly improved the lives of working class people in our city, as well as in Ward 2. I expanded civil rights protections for all Minneapolis residents, established sidewalk plowing programs to keep our residents safe during the winter, and created carbon fees on big polluters. I'm proud to be one of the most productive council members in Minneapolis, and the majority of my legislation has passed with unanimous support both from my colleagues as well as from the mayor. I am proud of my accomplishments since being elected, but our work has not been yet completed. If re-elected, I will work to deliver housing for all, a $20 minimum wage, a city-owned grocery store, and I will continue fighting against the Trump administration. I am running for re-election because I want Minneapolis to be a place where everyone can afford to live and thrive. You all are my community, and I am ready to keep building alongside you because I am in this with you, and I look forward to keep building together.
Thank you, candidate Wansley. And now we'll move on to the questions from the live audience and those submitted in advance. As we said, candidates will have 90 seconds, a minute and a half, to answer these questions. We will begin with Shelley Madore and then move on to Max Thoreau and Robin Walmsley. So that's the first of the randomized questions. So first of all to Shelley Madore, but all of you will have the same question. This is regarding public safety. Would you support the current community-driven model for public safety, including neighborhood-based safety groups and the university partners, or do you believe it needs to change? If you support the current model, how would you ensure oversight and accountability? If change is needed, what would you do? First to candidate Madore.
Thank you. So first, I want to make sure that everyone understands that we must enforce the DOJ decree and the Minnesota Department of Human Rights settlement. We must insist that those reforms are embedded in new police training and reforms. We also have to make sure that we improve our public safety ecosystem, which includes our 311 system, our ties to the University of Minnesota, and making sure that police are fully up to our charter mandate. Right now, we are still about 100 officers short, despite the fact that we have just hired 55 new community service officers who supplement our police force and 33 new officers. I also support the integration and more funding for social workers, this public safety department to be fully staffed, violence interrupter programs, and gun violence interrupter programs. And I'm looking forward to making sure that we are addressing the needs of public safety amongst all citizens here in Minneapolis. Thank you.
Next to candidate Thoreau.
Thank you. I believe it is crucial to keep community-based groups in our city along with the support of the Minneapolis Police Department. First and foremost, we need to expand the recruitment for our police department to ensure that there are enough officers to be able to respond to calls properly, safely, and efficiently. Community-based groups are also crucial for calls where officers aren't needed, such as certain mental health calls, drug situations. We need drug specialists and mental health counselors as well as community-based groups. The incidents that took place in Dinkytown over the past couple of years with, more often than not, young people coming in and shooting off fireworks and destroying local businesses, I believe would not have gotten to the point it did if community-based groups stepped in first, as opposed to the police presence, which often creates more tension because there isn't a trust between those communities. Thank you.
And candidate Wansley.
Thank you. I absolutely believe that we need a public safety system that keeps everyone safe, and for far too long, we've had one that has not done that. And I'm proud of the work over the past 3 years to have done the collaboration with our public safety stakeholders to actually make Ward 2 one of the places in the city that have some of the lowest crime rates overall. And I've done that through collaborating with our armed officers and non-MPD personnel through, for instance, Ward 2 will be opening the first ever South Minneapolis Community Safety Center / 3rd Precinct. That work is happening because my office brought $4 million forward to make sure that we're bringing a new model forward around public safety to keep everyone secure in their communities. I've also championed funding and the expansion of mental health providers to respond to 911 calls. We also now have social workers who are responding to 911 calls. And I brought additional funding to support additional safety pilots, such as those addressing juveniles who are engaging in our criminal justice system, moving traffic enforcement away from police response. I've brought funding forward to see those pilots and initiatives through, and I'm super excited to continue that work. We currently have 47% of our 911 calls going to police, and the study found that most of those calls can go to another service, and I'm absolutely committed to making sure that is a reality if reelected.
Thank you. We'll move on to question 2. And this question goes first to candidate Wansley, and it's still on public safety. What will you do as a city council member to address concerns about police accountability, transparency, and the relationship between law enforcement and the community?
Absolutely. During my 3 years now, I've honed in pretty closely on making sure that we have accountability over our officers. That has led to efforts of us having better compliance with our consent decree with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. But that has also meant using my policy-making authority to enact accountability and oversight. 2 recent policies that garnered unanimous support from my colleagues included the passage of off-duty fees, because right now officers are able to do side gigs using city resources for private gain, and that puts strain on our overall police force and also divert resources away from other areas that are in need. I passed a policy, again with unanimous support from my colleagues, that make sure that taxpayers, specifically you residents, aren't subsidizing that program at a tune of $1.4 million going forward. I've also brought forward a surveillance ordinance that makes it so that anytime MPD is acquiring technology that's going to be used in our communities for safety reasons, they have to come forward for council review to make sure that, one, we're paying or stewarding our resources correctly and responsibly, and that we're making sure that they're not violating the civil liberties of our residents, which were found to be the case in a pattern of practice by the Department of Justice and Minnesota Department of Human Rights. So I look forward to continuing my demonstrated leadership in this area of oversight and accountability over our police.
Same question to candidate Medor.
Thank you. So with regards to public safety here and holding our officers accountable, right now we actually have 5 different organizations that are supervising our police department. We have both advisory committees. We also have 2 committees that are allowed to be able to direct services to our officers in regards to changing policy and directing new law enforcement strategies. But the one thing that I'm finding very interesting is this discussion about the off-duty police officers. And the issue that I learned after following this policy was that it was supposed to address the number of hours that police officers were working outside of their general hours. Right now, there is an advisory committee that is actually working on this issue. They are revising police policy, and they are setting a standard of no more than 75 hours per week for an officer. The idea that we're going to create a new fee structure that the police department is not yet prepared to implement is not going to drive any new initiatives or actually solve the problem that we're being asked to solve, which is how many hours are people working off duty and what are those costs to the city. So I would like to see us more focused on solving a problem than creating a new organization or a new model that we are not prepared yet to implement. Thank you.
And candidate Thoreau.
Thank you. I believe increasing accountability in our police department is crucial to rebuilding our public's trust in that police department. Part of that, again, stems from adding community-led groups to respond to certain issues where police aren't needed, increasing oversight of the police department and regular audits for major use of force incidents to ensure that everything was done properly, and of course the consent decree that I'm 100% behind as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on now to question number 3, and this will be answered first by candidate Thoreau, and then moving on to candidate Walmsley, and then to candidate Major. So question 3, and this is regarding housing and homelessness. What role should the City Council play in regulating rents, incentivizing affordable housing development, or protecting tenants' rights?
Thank you. I believe it is crucial for the City Council and the City of Minneapolis as a whole to invest in more affordable housing for our city. Rents are rising rapidly every single year. I live in Dinkytown and have for the past few years, and every single year it's gotten more expensive, along with tuition, along with prices for everything else. Creating more affordable housing as well for our homeless population will help reduce the emergence of more encampments, which are a public safety hazard. Converting vacant abandoned properties into affordable housing units would be crucial for our city to not only help deter some homelessness and encampment issues, but also increase our stock of affordable housing. There's currently a bill in the Minnesota State Legislature called the CUB credit, which stands for Conversion of Underutilized Buildings, which provides incentives for the city to transform vacant buildings into affordable housing. Thank you.
Next to candidate Walmsley.
I've dedicated 3.5 years of my time in office to really addressing how do we make our housing market more affordable while also preserving and expanding our public housing options. And just on the affordability piece, that has really been complemented with tenant protections. Just this past week, once again, I brought forward ordinance that garnered unanimous support from my colleagues called Stop Slumlords, which targets and focuses on the 160 landlords across the city that are housing thousands of residents, many of which are in Ward 2, who are not providing housing up to our city code. And this ordinance will get them in accordance with that so residents don't have to live in slum conditions. I've also addressed homelessness through a housing first approach that has demonstrated to be the most effective approach. We know encampment evictions are not solving the crisis, and that's why I worked with our public housing leaders as well as county leaders to bring forward something called the Emergency Housing Voucher Program, which, if implemented, is set to reduce homelessness in our city by 20%. This is the county's own estimates. So that is a program that garnered unanimous support from my colleagues as well, and that also complements much of our other robust housing efforts that's also connected to tenant protections to make sure that we're keeping people who are housed, but also addressing that we need to have evidence-backed solutions to get people off the streets and into permanent housing.
Next, we'll hear from candidate Major on the same question.
Yes, thank you. So first, let's settle on one basic fact, that housing is a human right. That we need to ensure that if we are going to address the housing, that we have to build more housing. That means bringing new investment into our city. That means addressing landlord problems that have been around for dozens of years. When my daughter attended the University of Minnesota 15 years ago and came in as a freshman, we found housing to be very difficult. We found substandard housing. This is not a new issue. What we do have is a lack of regulatory services to ensure that tenants are having their rights preserved, that we are making sure that tenants are understanding what those rights are, that they understand how to report landlords, and that they are receiving action. Our regulatory services right now are not delivering those services to students or to other tenants throughout the city. We also have to be talking about the fact that encampments is a form of neglect. We do not have compassion for people when we are leaving them in situations that are dangerous. It is very important that we move forward with ideas to house individuals that are ready for housing with programs like Avivo Villages. However, we do know that Hennepin County is not yet fully funding the programs that they are given state dollars to provide to us. So I would like to be able to make sure that we're focusing on retrieving those resources and delivering them to people here in Minneapolis.
Moving on to question 4, also about housing and homelessness, and we will start this time with candidate Major in answering. Do you think Minneapolis' broad efforts to address homelessness, including public safety and social services, are working effectively? If so, why? And if not, what would you change?
Yes, thank you. I'll follow that up with where I just left off. The real issue that we have to be looking at here again is how is Hennepin County using the resources that they have been allocated to assist Minneapolis to solve this issue. We have programs that are already in place, and yet that data on how those programs are being delivered, how those dollars are being spent, are not fully communicated with Minneapolis. There is a gap in how we receive information. We also do not have tracking of individuals. How many times have individuals been in and out of encampments? How many times have they received services? And as a public safety issue, this is also a public health emergency. And we need to be assured that people that need services get services. And right now, according to the last 2 reports that were delivered by city staff to the city council, those services are being delivered. But what we are missing are addiction treatment centers, and we are also missing the opportunity to ensure that people with mental health are getting the support that they need. And those are not one-touch situations. Sometimes they're multiple touch, and sometimes it's frustrating, but we know that when we build trust with a community member, they are going to see, we are all going to be able to reap the benefits of that. I also ran for the disability community, an agency that focused on Housing First initiatives, and I would love to be able to continue that work and working with Hennepin County to assist our residents. Thank you.
Next to candidate Thoreau, same question.
Absolutely. Could you repeat the question for me,
Sure.
please?
Do you think Minneapolis' broad efforts to address homelessness, including public safety and social services, are working effectively? If so, why do you think so? And if not, what would you change?
I do not think they are. I haven't seen the issue improve, and I haven't heard of the issue improving from the many people I've talked to, whether door knocking or those I live with or talk to in my day-to-day life. Part of the issue is we need to, again, build trust with other communities. So adding addiction specialists, mental health counselors, and certain outreach programs to go address the issue as opposed to using force and sending police or simply leaving them, and in which case encampments persist. Building that trust back and offering the support for those in need is crucial. Thank you.
Candidate Walmsley, same question.
So the county actually does great tracking of this very problem. In fact, the county own data shows that there's about 600 to 800 folks sleeping on our streets every single night. And what I hope to do if reelected is actually address the fact that it's very much possible that Minneapolis could be one of the few cities in the country to actually solve homelessness. This problem is not insurmountable. And the way that we do is through a housing first approach, which the county is at the table and are ready to deliver. And I know this because they partner with my office to route a few $1 million into a program called the Emergency Housing Vouchers Program that has delivered already incredible results in reducing homelessness all across the country. And if re-elected, the first change is to implement that so we can get people off the streets and into permanent housing. I will also continue the work on expanding needed protections. Council passed a 30-day eviction notice to make sure that residents who are going through the eviction process can stay in their homes and be connected to the resources at the county and state level so that we're not leading or unintentionally causing people to be displaced and potentially also having to be out on the streets. So I look forward to complementing that work and also implementing the city's own opioid response plan, which my office worked with the mayor's administration to actually create and bring forward. So those are some of the things that we're already doing in partnership with our key stakeholders and look forward to implementing.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
On to question number 5. And this will go first to candidate Walmsley. and then followed by Medor and Thoreau. So here's the question. How will you work with the Glendale Public Housing residents, the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, and Ward 2 residents to ensure both plentiful and well-maintained public housing in our ward?
This is actually one of my proudest accomplishments. When I came into City Hall, we were funding public housing overall at about $1 million. In just my first term, we took that from $1 million to $5 million through collaboration with state leaders as well as with our county partners. And that's a 500% increase in our public housing that's going to protect it, to make sure that residents that include Glendale residents themselves will be able to stay and enjoy some of the most nicest, affordable public housing in the city for many more futures, and give our public housing authority more resources to go and develop more public housing across the city. I'm also championing the historic designation proposal that Glendale residents themselves have also organized behind. It's around preserving the history and the existence of our public housing, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to literally take the lead of our public housing residents in protecting and expanding public housing, not just for Ward 2 residents, but for the 3,000 plus folks who are still on the waiting list and will be having or will be seeing public housing be developed as a result of my office going out and working with our state, county, and local partners to get additional resources.
Candidate Medor, same question.
Yes, thank you. So with regards to Glendale, right now we are looking at a resident-led initiative to work with the Minnesota Housing Authority, Public Housing Authority, to redevelop the property in a way that is meaningful to them. There is a tenant advisory group that is being set up and working collaboratively to address the $22 million of needed repairs to that location. Right now, we have been working since 2019. The Minnesota Housing Authority, Minnesota Public Housing Authority have been working with Glendale residents to identify likes and dislikes. The dislikes that this community is speaking about is the lack of air conditioning, the lack of proper heating, bathrooms that do not serve the community well, the size of the units that do not fit for large families. They want to see more amenities, and they want to keep their community. I stand with Glendale residents as they go through this process, and I would never advocate for any Glendale resident to be removed from the property. With regards to the historical designation, that is a completely different set of circumstances. That is not managed under the Minnesota Housing Authority. That's actually managed under the city. And that designation has to go through city departments. And Councilmember Wansley here actually moved that back to the city on June 10th through Councilmember Ellison on her behalf to get that back to the city to review whether or not that designation can move forward. Thank you.
Candidate Thoreau, same question.
Thank you. As I said earlier, it's crucial that we build more affordable housing for our city, and to do that, we need to incentivize developers to do so. If they don't have incentives, they're not going to do it. And beginning again with the CUB bill that's currently in the Minnesota legislature, which provides subsidies and incentives for developers and the city alike to build or to renovate underutilized buildings or vacant buildings into affordable housing. We currently have, I can think of 2 buildings off the top of my mind in my neighborhood that have been sitting vacant for years that should be converted into affordable housing for those who need it. Again, that would help address our encampment issue as well. And working with our community to find what their needs are in order to build more affordable housing, whether that's single dwellings or full apartment buildings for those who need it. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to a question about business. Here's the question, and it'll be answered first by candidate Thoreau. How will you support, maintain, and retain small businesses and local entrepreneurs in Ward 2 and help them overcome barriers related to road construction, crime, and city regulations?
Small businesses are crucial for our city's economy. I come from a family that has owned small businesses in the past, and continuing to invest in the vibrant storefront initiatives is crucial for that. That provides incentives for our small businesses to operate, and it helps speed up permitting processes as well as cutting red tape. Implementing requirements for developers to give warnings and acknowledgement to small businesses before they continue construction around their business will also be crucial to helping them continue. Thank you.
Okay, next to candidate Wansley. Same question.
Thank you. So I've spent also a great deal in supporting all size businesses within Ward 2 and across the city. Just in Ward 2, I worked with hospitality leaders there to bring forward another ordinance that received unanimous support that will establish a protective fund to stabilize our hospitality industry, specifically the hotels in Ward 2, as we have the largest concentration of hotels outside of downtown. And that will help to stabilize our overall local economy. And then pair that with investments into our cultural corridors to make sure that minority-owned businesses that are also providing services in non-downtown areas all across the city are receiving support through technical assistance or helping with making renovations to the exterior of their businesses. We have a fund that establishes that, and that's through council's investment. Something else that I look forward to implementing on the policy side that we actually did just get passed through council, but Mayor Fry vetoed, is called the Commercial Advance Notice of Sale. And that will allow business owners, small business owners looking for a permanent home for their businesses to actually be notified when those openings come up, when vacant storefronts are available. So I look forward to working with my colleagues to reintroduce that. And that also has a specific focus in activating vacant storefronts in Dinkytown and around Ward 2. So some of the efforts that I look forward to continuing.
And candidate Medor.
Thank you. So small businesses here in Ward 2 have been suffering over the last several years. We've seen closures of major small businesses in Dinkytown. As you walk up and down, you see closed storefronts. We have to address the issue of rebuilding our economic opportunity here, and we need to do that first by focusing on rebuilding safety and making sure that citizens know that when they come to Ward 2 businesses, that they feel safe, they feel comfortable, and they're able to get around easily. That's not really been the case in the last couple of years. We also have to look at our zoning and our permitting barriers that prevent small businesses from growing, expanding, or moving to a new location. That is often a prohibitor for many small businesses to grow and expand. And as we know, as they grow and expand, they're hiring more people. Jobs is an important issue that's tied to our small business growth. I would also support rebuilding the operational models of making sure that our small businesses, when they are working together, that they have an audience with the council member that serves them. We know, for example, that during a most recent 311 report that was delivered to the administration committee in May, that we had 127 calls for encampments. That is not a safe environment for our small businesses to be functioning in. We have got to do better, and we've got to move forward in a way that embraces our city to move forward in a good direction. Thank you.
Now we're moving on to a question about community engagement. And we'll go first to candidate Medor, followed by candidate Thoreau and candidate Wansley. How will you engage with our diverse community, including university students, so that all voices are heard?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. So my engagement model is being accessible and collaborative. So if there is a neighborhood association, as I've attended all of our neighborhood associations over the last several months as I've been campaigning, I've learned about the issues that are affecting them. And I would like to be able to move forward in ways that, working with city council members to ensure that Ward 2 is seen as a vibrant and collaborative ward. We have to make sure that we are also addressing where people are. So that means you don't require people to come to the dais or to come to City Hall. You go to where they are. And that provides an opportunity for people to have real conversations with you. And you don't send staff. You show up and you do the work that you're being paid to do. And that is critically important. And again, to reference the city, just 2 weeks ago, there was a call by the business community in Seward that was asking for the council member to please come in and explain what the plan was going to be to deal with the 127 encampment calls that 311 received. And instead, a staff person was sent, and they talked about housing vouchers. The business community was looking for a solution. They were not looking for an excuse. We have got to move forward in a way that holds ourselves as city council members, but also our business community, knowing that we hear them and we want to support them. Thank you.
Same question, Candidate Thoreau.
Being available and there to listen to our community is crucial to building trust and engagement with our city council, state government, across all facets. I believe in a representative government that works for everybody, not just those who voted for you or not just those that you agree with, but listening to everybody's needs, perspectives, and views is crucial. And I feel that we've gotten too far away from that across all of our levels of government currently. And there's never been a more important time for us to sit down and talk with people, again, whether or not we agree with them or don't. There are plenty of people I don't agree with, but I sit down and having a real human conversation with somebody and listening to the troubles that are going on in their life helps to give a new perspective on things, and maybe it makes you think of something differently, right? It may not change your complete view, but you can appreciate them more and support them more and do the best you can, because that's what we're elected to do. That's what they're paying us to do, right? We're there to help them and make their lives better off every single day, not just to make the lives better off of those who voted for us. Thank you.
Same question, Candidate Wansley.
Yes, I'm very proud of the innovative way that we've used community engagement both inside of City Hall and outside of City Hall, and really allowing it to be a platform for community members to share their expertise around policy decisions or initiatives that the council should be investing in. Just 2 weeks ago, I brought Ramsey County Attorney John Choi to come and give a presentation to the Public Health and Safety Committee that I vice chair on the very successful work that they're doing to reduce gun violence in St. Paul. And because of that, we're garnering so much support amongst council that I am working with colleagues to bring that forward as a budget amendment to make sure that we're solving crimes at a rapid and needed rate here in Minneapolis. I've also invited community members to come give presentations about recommendations on how we can strengthen, linking to things like our police contract or police accountability, how we could strengthen our police contract to encourage more accountability and guardrail protections. In addition to that, I spend a lot of time on campus. If you're a student in here, you see me a lot. And my office has worked with the Carlson School of Management to do policy presentations, especially on how we're going to get a grocery store in Dinkytown. I worked with our undergraduate student government to deliver key policies like ending pre-leasing so students aren't being displaced by corporate landlords in the area. So I do a tremendous amount of community engagement and absolutely look forward to carrying that forward if I'm reelected.
Thank you. We're moving on now to a question on health and well-being, and this question will go first to Candidate Wansley. And the question is, what can you do to help bring a more affordable grocery store to Ward 2?
Yay, I'm so excited about this. So this has been an initiative that I've worked with undergraduate student government for over a year now because it's very clear students have talked about the lack of affordable grocery options on campus. The first thing that my office did in response to this was have our staff do analysis and present a report that actually showed that about 25% of U of M students right now are going hungry every single night because of a lack of a grocery store. To build upon that, we got tons of recommendations that I look forward to carrying out, but just in the past month, my office worked with the University District Alliance as well as our East Bank Neighborhood Association to secure seed funding to hire an economic development specialist who are going to support us in laying out a concrete plan on how to make this grocery store possible in Dinkytown. So there's funding in place. We're going to be hiring an expert and making the next steps to help guide investments both from the city, from the state, and from the University of Minnesota so that we're making sure that no student around the U is going without food, which is ridiculous. So I'm so excited about the work that we've already done and that we're going to continue doing to make sure that students get this grocery store ideally in the next year.
Same question, Candidate Moderator.
Thank you very much. So municipal grocery stores is a great idea, and many cities across the country have tried to implement that. To date, none of them have been successful. We are looking at an idea that has been floated around. We know we're hearing it from New York, and we're hearing it from some other places, but Minneapolis is not the place for this. A municipal grocery store would become an asset that the city of Minneapolis would have to manage. That means it would have to be able to not only negotiate with vendors to be able to deliver the food, but then we would also have to be working on how are we going to manage that? Where are we going to see those resources? And how is the city itself going to be able to implement these negotiated contracts to deliver real savings to people for them to be able to access these food products? What we have right now is a very robust food bank system. The University of Minnesota itself has a page that's dedicated to students where they can find free food at almost any day, any time. We also know, though, that our residents outside of the student body are looking for support in managing their own grocery budgets, and we have not yet addressed that. I would like to be sure that we are looking at zoning. Perhaps there are opportunities for us to change the way some of our businesses are set right now. We have empty storefronts. Is there an opportunity for us to look at small bodega-type grocery stores? But this idea of bringing in a municipal grocery store, especially in less than a year's time, is not a reality. We have to be focused on what we can deliver. Thank you.
Candidate Thoreau.
As a student who lives in Dinkytown, the one target we have on the entirety of campus is not nearly enough for myself or any of the other tens of thousands of students and residents who live in this area. That being said, I do not think a municipal grocery store is the answer. There is lots of new commercial space that has opened up with the building of the Standard Dinkytown, Identity Dinkytown, with many of those storefronts still sitting completely vacant. There are other options other than just going straight to a municipal grocery store, such as a food bank or a donation center for students who don't use all their food, because I know that happens plenty. I also know multiple students who are full-time students. They work and they can't afford to eat, and that forces them to go into the city or go to Free Meal Thursdays here at Kaufman, and that's completely unacceptable. So incentivizing companies to come in, and I've seen students calling a lot for a new Aldi in Dinkytown. That's kind of the biggest thing I've seen, and I would 100% be a supporter of that. Providing incentives for companies to come in and build larger locations that aren't low quality food, extremely high prices that half the time are unavailable. I can't count the amount of times I've gone to Target myself, and it reminded me of COVID when all the shelves were completely barren. And so we need to be better.
Thank you. Moving on to a question on immigration. We'll start with candidate Thoreau answering first. How should the city prepare and respond when ICE or other federal agencies endanger the safety, dignity, and constitutional rights of our immigrant communities?
So I would first like to say I vehemently reject the presence of ICE in our cities and what they do. I find it abhorrent, and we need to do better about supporting our immigrant communities. We need to create more access to free legal services for immigrants who don't have access to that. They don't have the funds for that. We also need to ensure that our police department is keeping people safe so that violence doesn't erupt and tensions don't boil over. Thank you.
And next to candidate Wansley, same question.
Yeah, so we actually saw a test of this on June 3rd where we saw ICE come through a predominantly immigrant community, and that really opened up the fact that the city is not ready for the ongoing attacks that will likely come from the Trump administration against our immigrant neighbors. And council did audit of the city's response to that ICE operation on June 3rd. And one of the clearest things that was highlighted is that our separation ordinance, the thing that is meant to keep separation of our law enforcement from working with ICE, that policy had not been updated in 20 years. So I, along with several of my colleagues, have reintroduced that ordinance with the goal of updating it so that we're doing it with the intentionality of keeping our immigrant neighbors safe. In addition to that, my office has brought forward funding to build up infrastructure for our immigration services inside of the city. I brought funding to expand staffing for our Office of Immigration and Refugee Affairs, and in consultation with other local leaders in St. Paul and across the state, we were able to increase funding for legal services to to be offered to immigrant residents who are struggling to navigate our very complicated and also traumatic immigration system, legal system specifically. So I brought those dollars. I look forward to continuing bringing funding needed within the city side to support our immigrant neighbors and doing the policy work to match that commitment as well.
And Candidate Medor, same question.
Yes, thank you. So as we all know, and has been stated here by both candidates, we are looking at a target by the Trump administration here in the city of Minneapolis. And we cannot allow MPD to cooperate with ICE in any way, shape, or form. I was very happy with the audit report that was done that showcased that we needed to update our separation ordinance, and I am fully supportive of that. We also know that we have to remain a welcoming city and that we have to support our new immigrant families coming in and making sure that they do not feel terrorized in their own neighborhoods. We can do that work. We also have to rely again on Hennepin County, since they are given state dollars to support our immigrant neighbors and helping them to be able to get the services that they need and the support that they need to be able to address their immigration concerns. But again, I would never support MPD in any way at all supporting ICE operations. It is terrorizing, it is trauma-ridden, and it is not something that the city of Minneapolis will stand for. Thank you.
Moving on to a question on the environment, and this will go first to Candidate Medor. Renters and multifamily unit residents have had limited means to do energy efficiency improvements. What specifically would you do to help them save energy and reduce their energy cost burden?
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. So our low-income households that are struggling to find ways to winterize and have their buildings be able to come up to new standards of efficiency, it is a difficult situation, and it's a two-pronged. One is the affordability of it. The second, of course, is that once a project is done in an older home in particular, and it requires a permit, that means an inspection. And once that inspection happens, the homeowner could actually be held liable for thousands of dollars of repairs. That is an unsustainable model for us to be operating. If we truly wish to see these goals met, and I fully support these goals, that we have got to do something to address our permitting process so it no longer is a barrier. That if we're replacing a window, we're getting a permit for replacing a window. And it doesn't put homeowners or other landlords in fear of not having their units being able to be rented without thousands of dollars of repairs. That is the number one thing that I hear when I talk to residents that have duplexes and triplexes now in the city. Our 2040 plan requires us to look at density housing, but if we are looking at older homes that aren't going to fall into those new categories, we've got to ensure that we are keeping those households functional and that those properties are continue to be available for rent. Thank you.
Candidate Thoreau, same question.
Thank you. We need to reduce the barriers that prevent homeowners and renters alike from being able to keep themselves warm. Keeping yourself warm should be a human right. We live in one of the coldest states in the entire country. There should be nobody going cold, freezing during our winters, which I wouldn't want to be outside today or not have heat today, and this is the best it's going to be for the next 5 months. So, reducing the barriers for people to be able to heat their own homes, also providing more green spaces in our city as a whole. We tend to live in a concrete jungle right now, and we have these heat islands that emerge because of new infrastructure and new construction where there's no more greenery left. And the solution is simply to plant more trees. The trees create more carbon dioxide, they help cool the environment, they help freshen the air, and in turn will keep our city, our entire city as a whole, cooler during the summer. Thank you.
Candidate Walmsley, same question.
So studies show that carbon emissions are one of the lead pollutants that's driving climate change and the warming of our climate. And that's exactly why my office brought forward, as I mentioned in my opening comments, carbon fees on big polluters. So we're going at the source also of entities in our city that are emitting some of the largest amount of carbon emissions that is expediting some of these impacts that we just talked about. And through that fee alone, we are going to be bringing in resources that can then go fund projects like we're talking about, retrofitting homes, retrofitting properties to weatherize them. So that is an initiative that, again, my colleagues unanimously supported just a couple of weeks ago, and that will be enacted in 2026. Something else that we're pairing and piloting right here in Ward 2 is the mixed development that is part of U of M. We're looking at how can we incorporate or integrate something called geothermal. And that alone also has the ability to reduce utility rates for residential and commercial property owners. Something else that council is actively doing right now to make sure we're building up more resources to fund initiatives like this so that properties can all be weatherized is building up our Climate Legacy Initiative Fund and doing that through the passage of franchise fees on multi-billion-dollar utility companies. So that is being moved forward in the coming weeks, and I look forward to supporting additional efforts like that.
Now we're moving on to a question on transportation, and candidate Wansley will go first on this one. What, if anything, would you do to improve our public transportation system so that it's accessible and safe for users of all abilities and incomes?
Track record has definitely shown that I'm a major proponent of public transit at the city level. Anytime there's been major projects that's come forward for our approval, council, including my office, has done everything possible to make sure we're providing authority, funding to make sure that rapid bus lines are part of those projects, that 24-hour bus transit options are also integrated in all of our future transportation designs. Something else that I'm really proud of too is we have to talk about when you're discussing safety is my office work to also triple the investment in traffic calming. So that makes sure, you know, once we put buses in place on the streets, we redesign them. We want to make sure that pedestrians as well as those driving cars or scooters are able to move around freely. And that investment in traffic calming has helped to do that across our city, and even motivated our state partners to even match us with a contribution by our office taking that leadership. So I'm very much invested in continuing at all levels of local, authority to make sure that we're building a robust public transit system that's also not just inclusive of cars, but making sure that we can have opportunities for everyone to safely move around.
Candidate Medora, you're next.
Yes, thank you. So we do need to have a multimodal city system here to support not only buses, but we have to support riders who get to work every day, communities using their bikes. We also have to be aware of people who walk every day and making sure that our sidewalks are safe. We also have to talk about how we are going to support people that have mobility issues. Now, I have been involved in transportation for more years than I'd like to say, but I'll tell you the number, it's well over 35 years. When I first came here to Minnesota, my first call out was to find out where is the bus service to get to Minneapolis. And what I was told is we don't have those sorts of things. I immediately got involved in expanding transit in the South Metro and moving and working with city leaders here in Minneapolis to ensure that we are moving people to jobs here in Minneapolis. So having an active, robust transit system is a high priority of mine. I also think that we have to make sure that if we are going to be implementing these services, that we are looking out for small businesses so that they are not impacted during transportation projects. We know right now that we had several small businesses that were not able to sustain a major transportation improvement project. They were not brought in, they were not communicated with, and they ended up closing. That's the reality of the way our transit system is being built right now. And the lack of coordination with the Met Council that runs our transit system is a major barrier for us to be able to address these issues in the city. Thank you.
And Candidate Thoreau, same question.
Thank you. One of the most important and first things we can do to improve our public transportation system as a whole is improve the cleanliness and the safety of it. I mentioned earlier I worked at the Minnesota State Senate where I took the light rail from here to the Capitol every single day for 4 months. I finally found out at the end of those 4 months that it's known you shouldn't go on the second train car because that's where the unsanitary things happen, that's where the crime is being done, and that was true. Never saw police officers. I think 2 times my ticket actually got checked. Everybody else was just allowed to walk on. Not to mention the light rail stations themselves. You have people sleeping at the stations, they're dirty, and improving our public safety of our transportation systems is crucial. Increasing our funding for our public transit officers, not the police officers, because it shouldn't be a 911 call every time somebody's smoking on a train, right? That we shouldn't have to worry about that just going to work. Also, for public transportation, incentivizing people to walk and bike and scooter or moped, whatever they do to get to class, to get to school, to get to work is crucial. And the biggest way we can do that is by improving our public infrastructure, potholes, giant cracks in sidewalks, pieces that are completely missing. I can think of 15 examples off the top of my head in my 2-block area that haven't been fixed for years. And again, we pay some of the highest taxes in the state, and we deserve to see the effects of those. Thank you.
Okay. This next question, we'll start with candidate Thoreau and then move on. What would you do to support and protect vulnerable communities in Minneapolis and combat racism?
Building trust between our communities, along minority communities, underprivileged communities, our government, everybody is crucial. The first way to do that is outreach and talking to people. I mentioned that earlier, right? You can't be seen as somebody who just sits in City Hall and just listens to the people who come to you. It's important to go out there and listen to other people and hear their experiences, because a lot of people don't even necessarily know where to start. They have these issues and they feel their hands are tied when you can be the solution, and that's what your job is. So building trust and outreach is absolutely crucial. Thank you.
Next, let's hear from candidate Wansley on the same question.
So just this past year alone, I've championed several initiatives that have really meant to bolster support on the city side for some of our most vulnerable communities, especially in light of a Trump administration. The first is addressing the need for housing security for our seniors. We are also seeing seniors become more likely or inclined to experience housing insecurity because of the lack of affordable senior housing options. So I brought funding forward to establish a program with the support of our Senior Advisory Board that will allow seniors to age in place. Additionally, I worked with my colleagues to establish or pass a civil rights ordinance that actually expands broader protections for more vulnerable communities. And I'm very proud of that work, and that received unanimous support from my colleagues and the mayor. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been a major proponent of bringing investments into the city's own immigration office to make sure that our immigrant neighbors also receive the supports that they need as they're navigating this very scary terrain and just anti-immigrant climate that's being advanced under the Trump administration. So this is a big bulk of my work, and it's largely led from recommendations from residents in the community. They come to City Hall, or I meet them in the community and they mention, can you do this? And most times we do in my office, and I'm proud of that.
And candidate Medor.
Thank you. So one of the best ways that we can do outreach to vulnerable communities is first ensuring their housing stabilization. That piece is a very important part of this, but we have to also make sure that they remain housed. And by doing so, we have to make sure that we are addressing predatory lending, that we are working with our communities to make sure that people understand how to take care of their homes, what support services they may need. I would definitely look at hiring somebody in our public health or maybe even part of our regulatory services that go out and assist new homeowners in being able to learn how to manage their homes. It's a very complicated system, and if you're stressed because you are having an affordability issue, you've seen property taxes increase, you've seen your own personal insurance for auto and your commuter fees being increased, you are looking at somebody who might not be able to stay in their home. That's seniors, working people, and also young people in their first jobs. So we've got to do a better job of making sure that citizens and residents know where they can go for help before it becomes a crisis. If we were able to do that, we would be able to look at our neighborhoods becoming stronger, looking at our neighborhood schools becoming stronger, and making sure that our citizens are happy. And when they walk out the door every morning, they look around and they say in their community, this is a great place to live. We need to build that trust with those communities so they have that reaction. Thank you.
Okay, and one last question before we move into our closing statements. And this one will start with, let's see, get this right here. This one will start with candidate Medor. And this is going to be a flash question, so think fast and give us your best answer in 30 seconds.
Ooh.
What specific actions would you take to attract and maintain well-paying jobs in Minneapolis?
Rebuild our downtown. Am I at 30? We have got to make sure that we are building a robust downtown to attract new businesses. With every new business comes new jobs. We have a lot of students that are graduating, that are looking for work. Every day we're opening the newspaper saying there is no way that we're going to be able to accommodate all of these new students. I say no, we have to be able to figure that out. And we can do that with a robust policy to support small businesses and rebuilding our downtown.
Okay, Candidate Thoreau.
Thank you. Addressing our public safety issue is crucial to attracting more small businesses. One of the candidates mentioned it earlier. You don't want to open up a small business right next to maybe an encampment or where there is constant unrest going on in that neighborhood. So number one is absolutely addressing a public safety issue.
And Candidate Wansley.
I'm going to be the one. Can you please repeat that question?
Sure. What specific actions would you take to attract and maintain well-paying jobs in Minneapolis?
So absolutely agree that we need to make investments in downtown, but also we have other parts outside of downtown where residents work, play, and actually keep our communities afloat. And they have to look at empty storefronts and vacant commercial spaces all the time. So for me, it's looking at how do we activate our vacancy fees that I led on to make sure small businesses have the ability to purchase and occupy space so that they can provide those jobs to the broader community.
Okay, thank you. Whew. Maybe take a big deep breath and thank you for your excellent attention. We'll now move on to our candidates' final closing statements. We'll start with Candidate Wansley, followed by Candidate Thoreau, followed by Candidate Medor. For the closing statements, 30 seconds.
30 seconds, that's crazy. Wow. Well, over the next 4 years, as we talked about, we are going to face attacks from the Trump administration, and we need leaders at City Hall who are going to stand up for all residents. It's hard to imagine that some of my opponents are going to do that when one of them have taken 29% of her donations from Republican donors. I have not done that. I will never commit to doing that. I have a clear vision and plan on how to defend our communities against Trump and how to improve the quality of life for working class families in the coming years, and I look forward to doing that with you all. I have the demonstrated leadership for this moment and what is required to make our city a more equitable and affordable place for all of our residents.
Candidate Thoreau, your closing statement.
We all live in a time currently characterized by divides in our political process at every single level, and it's time for us to build a bridge between them, not widen them. I believe in a representative government that listens to the voices of all of its constituents and works each and every day to make their lives better off, and that belief has guided me throughout this campaign. If I were to be elected, I would do just that and take into account everybody's perspective because I believe that's important. Thank you all again for being here tonight and for our moderator, Debbie Magnuson, for doing such an excellent job. Thank you.
And Candidate Medor.
Thank you. So thank you to Councilmember Wansley and Mr. Thoreau for an informative conversation tonight. And thank you again to everyone who hosted this event, asked questions, and listened here and at home. Participating in local government is more important than ever, as is the success of Minneapolis and its residents. If I am elected, my only focus will be ensuring that Minneapolis remains a beacon of prosperity and civil rights for all of us. I will be truthful with our community about the role of City Council. I will continue to be accessible and collaborative. And I will treat Minneapolis as the important and unique city that we know it is, and not as a test city for unproven policies.
Thank you, Candidate.
Thank you.
All right. So, on behalf, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
On behalf of our co-sponsors, I thank the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve our community. We hope this forum has helped you as voters make an informed decision. Remember, in Minneapolis, we use ranked choice voting for this election, where you vote for candidates in order of your preference, allowing you to rank your vote. first choice, second choice, and third choice. This method allows your vote to count toward another candidate if your favorite candidate loses. If your first choice candidate is eliminated, your vote is moved to your second choice. To learn more about ranked choice voting, please visit our Fair Vote table outside of this room in the lobby. We also thank you, our audience, for your participation in this forum and the democratic process. We challenge you after this forum to think about 3 things you can do now to further civic dialogue about these issues and get your friends and neighbors to participate in this important election. Nonpartisan information about candidates and about voting is also available at vote411.org. Early voting for the general election began on Friday, September 19th and will end on Monday, November 3rd. A video recording of this forum will be available unedited for viewing on the League of Women Voters Minneapolis website at lwvmpls.org. Editing of this video is authorized only for official media reporting. Footage cannot be used in campaign publicity. The recording is the property of the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis. Please remember that there is a meet and greet starting right now, so you can address your questions to the candidates specifically. This will be happening in the lobby right outside this room. At this point, please show your appreciation for the candidates by your applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, please vote. Your vote is your voice and your power. Thank you.
Thank you. You did a great job.